How's it going? We're talking about the final boss in Blackfathom Deeps, MAI. Now, like the previous boss, this fight is a two-phase encounter. Now, both phases are actually quite similar, but let's kick things off by talking about phase 1. So in phase 1, the boss has a frontal, don't get hit by it. Ranged, you want to position yourselves closer to the boss. This just gives you more time to evade the frontal should it come out. The boss will also apply a debuff called Corrosion. This debuff will be regularly applied to the active tank, deals 50 damage every 3 seconds, stacks, and cannot be dispelled aside from one method. And that method is running into the cleansing elementals on the side of the room. But after standing in the elemental to clear your debuff, be sure to immediately get out. This is because upon clearing, 2 corrosive droplets will spawn in its place, and a pool of green will be left in its wake. Standing in it causes you to rapidly gain stacks of the corrosion debuff. We obviously don't want this to happen, so make sure you get out. Now as for the corrosive droplets, just have a tank pick them up, and your raid needs to DPS them down. Alternatively, if you don't want to deal with the adds, another solution is to have the off-tank taunt once the active tank reaches around 3 to 4 stacks. With enough damage, you can phase the boss into phase 2, while each tank, assuming you're running 2 tanks, are hovering around 3 to 4 stacks of the debuff. The final mechanic in phase 1 is a Hateful Strike. Now at this point, I'm not sure whether or not this is threat or health based, but try to make sure both of your tanks are always within melee range of the boss. DPS can survive a Hateful, but obviously tanks are better at mitigating that damage. Now once the boss reaches 50% health, it will return to its starting position while it transitions into shadow form to mark the beginning of phase 2. During this time, and for roughly 10 seconds or so, the boss takes 99% reduced damage. This is a good time to clear debuffs and finish off any remaining adds before the boss becomes active. Once active, the boss retains all of its previous abilities, except now they're in shadow form, which is to say, the frontal now deals shadow damage and leaves a debuff called Shadow Seep. This debuff reduces your maximum health by 10% and increases all shadow damage taken by 25%. This debuff also gets applied to your tank instead of the previous corrosion debuff. Like the previous phase, tanks either have the option of taunt swapping at high stacks, or can use the cleansing elementals around the room to clear their debuff, but instead of spawning corrosive droplets, it spawns a big single void elemental. Now these void adds are kind of scary, so really we want to try and avoid clearing as much as possible. But if you do choose to clear, just like phase 1, the cleansing elemental will then become a shadowy pool, where if you stand in it, will cause you to gain stacks of the debuff Shadow Seep. Now this is assuming you have cleansing elementals remaining in the room. I believe you begin the encounter with 4 and they don't respawn, so you only have so many opportunities to clear your debuff. Now something worth noting that we did on our second kill is we opted not to clear the debuffs in phase 1 and only clear towards the end of phase 2 when our tanks had high stacks of both debuffs. Now what's interesting is that the cleansing elemental will clear both debuffs at once. However, in doing this, it spawns both types of adds, so I'd only really recommend doing this if you're certain you have the damage to blast the boss before the adds become a problem. Finally, it's worth noting that if any players with either the Corrosion or Shadow Seep debuffs die while those debuffs are active, they will jump to the nearest player. This makes deaths on this fight difficult to recover from, and it also means that you can't clear the debuffs by intentionally sacking one of your players. But otherwise, that's the fight. Congratulations on completing the first raid in Season of Discovery. If you found this guide or any of my previous guides helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. I plan on making more Season of Discovery content in the future, and I really appreciate the support. Otherwise, thanks for watching and have a fantastic day. I'll see you in the next one.